Just type it in here in my computer on a Monday morning. What is a thug? How do we define thug? Let's take a look here. Per the dictionary, the official definition of the word thug on a Monday morning is a violent, aggressive person, especially one who is a criminal. Sounds pretty basic to me, right? So in the wake of last Wednesday's tragedy in this town, is it reasonable? Is it fair to call those who committed such heinous acts, including killing one woman and hitting nearly 24 more and injuring a dozen kids, is it fair to call those individuals thugs? Is this even debatable? Is this even controversial? The answer is no, but in our stupid media climate that we find ourselves in, apparently that's the conversation people want to have. You know, this all goes back, if you didn't see it over the weekend, Quentin Lucas went viral for comments he made on another radio show on Friday when he said that Governor Mike Parson used a dog whistle when he blamed thugs for the shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. Now, by the way, this all started on our show last Thursday. Mike Parson came on this show, and if you didn't hear it, if you missed the conversation, this is what kicked off this last couple of days of back and forth. Here's Mike Parson and what he said about what took place on Wednesday at the Super Bowl rally that apparently is now being called a dog whistle in some corners. Take a listen.
You know, I just hate it. I just hate it. You know, as a grandparent of kids going out there trying to have a little fun, trying to get a glimpse of a player or whatever they may be there for, of the celebration, and then you just got some absolutely, I'll be careful what I say, for I'm going to say something I'm going to probably regret, but just a bunch of criminals, thugs out there, just killing people at an incident like that and attempting to kill all those people and created such chaos that people got hurt, being trampled. I mean, it's just like, I hope, Pete, that prosecutors and judges and everybody understands how serious this is. And I mean, they should go after these people full board.
Governor Mike Parson last Thursday on this show. So then Mayor Lucas goes on another radio show on Friday and gets asked about those comments. As if somehow that's the story. As if somehow the story of this horrific act from last Wednesday is about whether or not these individuals are thugs. They are the very definition of thugs. A violent, aggressive person, especially one who is a criminal. That's the dictionary version of the word thug. Right? So the mayor goes on this other radio show, and here's what he says. He says, I certainly do think this was criminal activity. It's lawlessness, and I think that's troubling. But thugs is a dog whistle in the most classic sense, and I've seen this dog whistle time and again. How is it a dog whistle?
I was going to ask you that when you got done. I didn't want to interrupt the flow of thought here.
Well,
but now that you've come to it, I have that question.
I just read the definition. A violent, aggressive person, especially one who is a criminal. That's the official definition of the word thug. Tell me where one's skin color, race, anything like that comes in to define the word thug. There were plenty of thugs on January 6th, 2021 at the Capitol. They happen to be white. And the people that committed these heinous acts last Wednesday at the Super Bowl parade are the very definition. I mean, when you look up the word thug in the dictionary, you should see their faces when we find out who they are. That's what a thug is. There's no dog whistle here. There's only a dog whistle if you want to make it into a dog whistle. And by the way, if you think the word thug is a dog whistle, then hate to break it to you, you might be the racist. If you think that the word thug can only define you by a certain background and skin color, then you might be the one that needs to look in the mirror. Because I've never thought of a thug as being someone of a certain background, a certain skin tone. I think of a thug as the dictionary definition of thug, a violent, aggressive person, especially one who is a criminal. And by the way, criminals come in all shapes and sizes and backgrounds and looks and everything else. There's nothing controversial about that. The fact that this is where this conversation has gone, the fact that it's even a topic, that it's even being words matter. We can't call people thugs. You know who called people thugs, by the way? Barack Obama. I want to take you back to 2015 when there were riots in Baltimore, Maryland. And Barack Obama said, I want to go back to April of 2015. He assailed the, quote, criminals and thugs who tore up the place and described them as a distraction from the real issues of police brutality. He stood by that, by the way. I'm reading this article from USA Today, April 29th of 2015. President Obama does not regret using the term thug in describing the violent rioters in Baltimore this week, spokesman Josh Earnest said on Wednesday. Earnest said, quote, whether it's arson or, the looting of a liquor store, those were thuggish acts. Yeah, those are thuggish acts, no doubt about it. And opening up fire in a crowd of 1 million people after a Chiefs Super Bowl parade is also a thuggish act. Those are facts. These are not debatable. This is not my opinion, your opinion. These are defining the word thug and thuggish actions.
Well, now you're stacking up facts, Pete.
I know. There's too many of them.
The governor called them thugs. The police chief called him a bad guy. Remember that one,
Rick
right?
Smith.
We play this story.
Yes.
Right? When you got nothing.
Yeah, when you got nothing. And that's the thing. There is nothing here that is fitting their preferred narrative. Nothing whatsoever. So that's why they are taking you in 27 different directions on making this, similar to Sandy Hook when there's very little in common with Sandy Hook. They're taking you down the road of what is a thug. They are taking you down the road of if only the Missouri GOP did something different or better on gun laws. They are taking you in so many different directions. Why? Because as I posted last night on Twitter, I wrote here, many in Kansas City media, political groups, grifters, and other allies are in overdrive to push their preferred narrative in the wake of this tragic Super Bowl parade shooting. But just wait. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The clock is ticking. And that is why they are pushing this narrative ad nauseum. Because they know, as the facts continue to come out, there will be no narrative for them. It will be game, set, match. They will be toast. I can't get into everything right now, but just know it's going to come to an end for them, and it's going to happen real fast. And by the way, thank you to our good friend Harris Faulkner of Fox News for sharing that tweet here in the last 20 minutes and saying, wake up and listen to Pete on weekday mornings. Have a great show today, my friend. So thank you very much, Harris Faulkner. We appreciate you here on KCMO Talk Radio. Always a friend of the show. And where did all this come from, by the way? Where did all this start? Well, I think a lot of this started possibly on Friday on this show when things went totally off the rails. Not because of me. Trust me, not because of me. But I do wonder if when the mayor made these comments that have now gone viral, he was taking a page out of his own buddy's playbook and some of what he said on this program. We'll get to that and your calls at 913-408-7957 on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Friday got a little off the rails on this show. Never had a 3-segment, no commercial break hour like what we had on Friday. And I do wonder if that in some ways helped lay the foundation for what ended up going viral and getting national conversation over the weekend. And that's when the mayor of Kansas City, Quentin Lucas, went on another radio show and claimed that the governor of Missouri, Mike Parson, was dog whistling on this show on Thursday when he referred to those who shot up the Super Bowl parade, and not even really shot up the parade, but apparently, got into an altercation, and that resulted in innocent people getting struck by gunfire, as thugs. By every definition of the word thug, they are thugs. So why would the mayor do that? I mean, I think he knows better, to be honest. I know some of you think I give him the benefit of the doubt too often, but I like to try to see the best in people, and I think he knows better. I think he would say, yeah, privately they're thugs. And it's not even controversial to call them thugs. So I don't know why you'd have to say that privately, but either way, they're thugs. By the definition of what the word thug is, they are absolutely thugs. A thug is a violent, aggressive person, especially one who is a criminal. Tell me how you're not a thug when you do what these guys did at the Super Bowl parade last week. So that being said, an hour before the mayor made these comments on another radio show in town, we had Nick Wright, Fox Sports First Things First, on our show. And my head is still spinning and trying to make sense of that conversation because Nick Wright made no sense. He just yelled really loud and had all the talking points from the New York Times about Chicago guns coming from Indiana. And he also said that by myself and others bringing up what appears to be accurate in this story, which is thugs doing thuggish things, that's somehow a dog whistle. That's what Nick Wright said on this show. And I wonder, part of me wonders if the mayor heard that and said, you know what, let's go down the dog whistle road. Let's start making this about dog whistles instead of the fact that, we've got a city here, and it's really just a portion of the city in Jackson County in particular, where criminals run wild, where criminals do not fear law enforcement, where criminals do not fear prosecution. Maybe he took a page out of Nick Wright's book when Nick Wright came on this show and made it about, dog whistling.
In what context can that study be done? How can we provide you the data? What needs to be
Perfect.
done? And do you think we should seriously address and change the easy access to firearms, particularly weapons of war? That's my question.
Well, the weapons of war thing, I mean, come on, Nick. That's just a phrase that means nothing. But to your point,
lightweight semi-automatic rifles. Does that phrase mean something to you?
Yes, but once again, what's the purpose that we have no information on the gun that was found with these kids yet? We've seen photos on social media, and that's it.
I do. There were 5 guns. 2 of them were lightweight semi-automatic rifles. I believe they are. If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So let's say that's completely accurate. I haven't heard that from KCPD yet, but if that's what you've got, that's great. It doesn't change the fact that the same access that you are complaining about in Kansas City is also available in Lee Summit, Independence, and St. Joe. And they don't have these problems.
Okay.
So now you're getting into a macro issue and a different conversation.
No, Pete, no, Pete, but here's the thing. Everywhere has these problems eventually. The day-to-day crime, I get it that you wanna blame this on quote gang, and again, the incident at the parade is the micro. I am now talking macro. You wanna blame this on gangbangers, and you want to paint a very vivid picture for your audience without specifically saying what you're whistling. And you want to say, why doesn't this happen in Leawood? Who lives in Leawood? What are the fathers like in Leawood? I get it.
So I wonder, that was Nick Wright on this show on Friday, right? When I point out the obvious, because the massive hole in his argument when he talks about gun laws and gun crimes is the fact that the state of Missouri, has gun laws that are looser than many other parts of the country. And those gun laws only lead to a lot of violent criminal action in certain parts of the state. That ain't dog whistling. Nothing about that is a dog whistle. That is pointing out the facts of how the laws are the same across the entire state of Missouri. And there are portions of the state that have incredibly violent individuals who are killing people on a near daily basis. Not a dog whistle. That's laying out the facts of what the crime situation is in the state of Missouri. So I wonder, as Nick Wright was making those comments, and taking my facts and saying, well, you're just dog whistling, which is effectively what he did in that part of our back and forth on Friday, which also went viral. I wonder if, part of the mayor said, hey, that sounds pretty good. Let's go the dog whistle route because, damn, every other narrative we have is about to be smashed to smithereens. So when all else fails, you rip out the race card. That's the name of the game.
I'm thinking of Mandy Patinkin in Princess Bride as Will Montoya. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
No. And
right.
In this case, hell no. They've got nothing. It's not a dog whistle. Nothing about this is whistling towards anything. It's pointing out that you have young juveniles who are out there right now terrorizing Kansas City communities, right? And we'll find out more about them in the days ahead, God willing, because they're going to be charged as adults. They were charged, by the way, on Friday as juveniles, and they will be charged as adults, is the plan here. So that's all well and good. We're going to find out much more in the days ahead. But trust me, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, when you look on this story that will revert back to dog whistling in any sense of the imagination, in the way we're covering it, in the way anybody should be covering it, because that's not what this story is. This story is about people who continue to not abide by the rule of law. Mike in Kansas City, I got less than a minute. It's yours. Go.
Yeah, what about that whole situation? There are other areas that also have these things, but every time they talk the gun control issue, isn't that civilian reprisals? You're going after law-abiding people, and you're trying to do reprisals against them and persecute them for something they have no responsibility on. Talk about dog whistling.
Yeah.
That's the civilian reprisals.
Yeah.
Just like going to Leadichen, killing 5,000 people because one of your generals got shot.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. You're right. News in 3 minutes, 913-408-7957. Always words of wisdom from Bill O'Reilly. Good morning, President's Day. Traffic is light out on 435 as we look out here, the studio windows in Corporate Woods. Friday was, nuts on this show, and it's been nuts for the better part of the last near week in the wake of what happened on Wednesday in this town. But I spent a lot of time reading your emails, reading your direct messages on Twitter, on Facebook, to my conversation with former sports talk show host in this town and now Fox Sports' Nick Wright. The backstory here is I called him out on Twitter because he went on this grand soliloquy on his TV show about how broken up he was about what happened here in Kansas City, as we all were. But he made it about gun control. He tied it to Sandy Hook, which makes absolutely no sense. Tying what happened on Wednesday to Sandy Hook is apples to oranges, literally apples to oranges, outside of the fact that somebody committed a crime with a weapon. But after that, there is no similarity at all between Sandy Hook and Kansas City. But of course, when you're in your little bubble in sports media, and sports media is, all on one side of the aisle. I've often said, as someone who used to work in sports media, news media has more diversity of thought than sports media does. It's one of the reasons I left it. So I called him out for that. He said he wanted to come on the show on Friday morning, and he did. And we went back and forth straight for 45 minutes. Mark was moving around commercials. I was getting yelled at. This was nuts what was going on around here. But once again, I was trying to get to a point. And if you haven't heard the conversation with Nick Wright, you can hear the entire thing on the podcast. It's gotten thousands of downloads since Friday morning. So I just want to play part of this because this minute and a half long clip is, to me, a perfect encapsulation of the lack of substance people like Nick have in this conversation and their lack of nuance that they either knowingly fail to have or wantingly fail to have. Take a listen.
In what context can that study be done? How can we provide you the data? What needs to be done?
Perfect. I'm glad you asked. State by state is a great way to look at a micro level of the data. And to bring it back to my earlier point, regardless of the state, these issues have existed.
And we live in a country with 300 million people and 300 million guns in circulation. And I'm waiting for you to still give me the thing that protects us at the parade, protects us at the school, and makes us all feel safe with our kids. And I, in 25 minutes, haven't gotten that.
Yeah, I mean, because I thought it was so obvious that individual citizens should not be allowed to possess these types of weapons. That's the answer. And if they, oh my goodness, what about, protecting ourselves against, tyrannical government? Guys, as great radio host Laszlo in Kansas City said 20 years ago, the alleged tyrannical government has nukes. So unless you're going to advocate that we should also be able to have Harrier jets and suitcase nukes of our own, if the government wants us, they're going to get us. So set that part aside. I'm very clear on what I want. I admit that I am probably further extreme than a lot of people. That's fun.
That was Nick Wright on this show. And by the way, when the least ridiculous thing that he said there was, quote, another radio host in this town who doesn't know, left from right and up from down, that's awfully telling about that minute and a half long clip, is it not? And trust me, that was one of the more conversational parts of that entire 45-minute interview, which wasn't really an interview. It was mostly Nick screaming into his phone and me trying to calm him down and talk facts. That's what it was for the most part. But I wanted to take you behind the scenes on that because, I'm trying to sit here and talk about what's actually gone on in this town the last few years, right? And how Operation Legend was one of the great success stories in recent Kansas City history when it comes to violent crime. The feds came in here at the behest of Donald Trump and Bill Barr, and they cleaned a lot of bad people out. They got them off the streets. They got a lot of illegal guns off the streets, and you saw an immediate short-term reduction in crime in Kansas City in the summer of 2020. That's what happened. Those are facts. Yet when you have people screaming about gun laws, it's amazing that they'll do it and they'll say, okay, the same gun laws that exist in Independence, Lee's Summit, Kansas City, St. Joe, they're all the same. But you have very specific pockets where violent crime is taking place. And despite what Nick Wright said on this show, and despite what Mayor Lucas said on another radio show, that is not dog whistling. That is pointing out the facts of what happened in this town and what has been happening in this town for far, far, far too long. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO. Paul in Kansas City. What's up, Paul?
Hey, Pete. Yeah, I listened to the whole interview, and that clip you just played there shows how disingenuous their thought process is when he says that you got to have, like Biden said, I've got F-15s against your AR-15. Well, I served in Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010. Let me tell you what, the guy on the other side, he didn't have B-1 bombers from Whiteman. He had AK-47, and in 2020, we ended up retreating. History is full of people that don't have that have fought for their cause and their conviction with against tyrannical government. So that's just disingenuous.
It is. And but when you're talking about how Chicago guns come from Indiana, and you use analogies like, "Well, where's your bazooka?" You know that there's not a lot of depth there. News in a minute. We're back with you right after that on KCMO. No, a lot of you are bringing this up too on the text line. Yeah. Trust me, we know they're thugs. Yes, you can call them thugs. Thugs, thugs. By definition, those that committed violence at the parade last week are thugs. Obviously, happy Monday, welcome in. The definition of a thug is a violent, aggressive person, especially one who is a criminal. No, I get it. I'm seeing some of your texts this morning, and I get it. It's a late start for some of you as well on a President's Day. You got off, slept in, getting the coffee. It's all good. We're here 6 to 10. It's a normal day for us on KCMO.
Doing our thing.
We're doing our thing. But I know for some of you, you're out of your regular routines. So, yes, Quentin Lucas has been out of shape because Governor Mike Parson on this show last week called the alleged suspects thugs. What else do you want to call them? I mean, there's a lot of words I could use that wouldn't be FCC appropriate on the air. I thought Mike Parson was very measured last week when he said this on this show.
I just hate it. I just hate it. As a grandparent of kids going out there trying to have a little fun, trying to get a glimpse of a player or whatever they may be there for, of the celebration, and then you just got some absolutely. I'll be careful what I say, for I'm going to say something I'm going to probably regret, but just a bunch of criminals, thugs out there, just killing people at an instant like that and attempting to kill all those people and created such chaos that people got hurt, being trampled. I mean, it's just like, I hope, Pete, that prosecutors and judges and everybody understands how serious this is. And I mean, they should go after these people full board.
I think that's incredibly measured from the Missouri governor.
I think so. He was so measured. Unfortunately, the invitation was gold embroidered when he said, I better be careful here.
Yeah.
So immediately, I'm going to take that opening.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like that was coming. It's like if you just kind of say it with your conviction, it might have slid by half the idiots out there.
Well, that's true. If he just said it's a bunch of criminals and thugs instead of prefacing it by saying I've got to be careful in what I say, he may have opened the door. I see what you're saying there.
Only slightly. I mean, he's got to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not faulting him for doing that. That was just, unfortunately, the golden embroidered invitation or to get my feelings hurt.
Yeah. Now, I did reach out to the governor's office to see if he wanted to respond to the mayor saying he was dog whistling, which the mayor said on another radio show in this town on Friday. And basically they said they're not going to get into a blow for blow over the word thugs. Bottom line, this is from the governor's office unofficially, they are thugs. Kids who shoot innocent people are thugs, punks, and murderers. Yeah, that's it. I can't believe how stupid this has gotten and out of control this is getting. That now instead of looking at the story and saying, gosh, why and how do we have juveniles running around with these kinds of guns and shooting them off at parades? Who are they? What are their backgrounds? What criminal histories do they have, if any? How did they slip through the cracks? What happened here? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Instead, it's like, well, you call them thugs. You can't call these poor kids thugs. Why not? That's what a thug is. By definition, that's what a thug is. A thug is a violent, aggressive person, especially one who is a criminal. That's a thug. These are thugs. Pete, regarding thugs, I'm afraid Mayor Lucas will take any opportunity to attack a Republican that he can. It's gross how political he is being. Well, here's the thing. Mike Parson has been very fair to Quinton Lucas. And that is the disappointing part of this if you're Mike Parson. Mike Parson has not treated Quinton Lucas like, say, other people in his role would have. For better or for worse, whatever you think about that is irrelevant. He has not used Quinton Lucas as his personal punching bag from the governor's office. He has not gone out of his way to try to embarrass or shame Quinton Lucas over attempts to, remove police funding, over the violent crime issues. He has not used Quinton Lucas as a punching bag. And some in Mike Parson's position would have used Quinton Lucas as a punching bag. He has not. He has really been fairly reasonable with the Kansas City mayor. He has not gone out there and threatened to withhold funding. He just hasn't done things that other people would have done in that governor's office to the Kansas City mayor. And this is how the mayor repays him. By going on another radio show after the governor said on our show that these kids are thugs and saying that the governor was dog whistling when he called them thugs. That is just completely unfair from this mayor to go on another radio show and make that claim. Because, by the way, the person who does that show, that other radio show that the mayor was on, It's the same thing. They want to make it about guns. They want to make it about words. And, oh, we don't want to use the wrong word for these guys. Okay, they're criminals and they're thugs. And there's 17 other words that we can use, some which we probably couldn't broadcast. They're scum of the earth. If you open up a weapon at a parade and you shoot people as young as 6, you are scum of the earth. How about that? Is that better? Does that make you feel nice and warm and cozy inside? Instead of calling them thugs, I think they're both. And it's not controversial. It's not debatable. And, what I wish the mayor would have said to that other host who was trying to bait him into exactly what he said, make this all about race, and completely deflect from the story at large here. I wish he would have said, if he really wanted to kind of toe that line, here's what Quentin Lucas could have said. And he's quick on his feet. He could have said, listen, maybe not the word I would have used, but I can't fault anybody in an emotional time for using that word to describe these individuals. If he wants to give himself an out, he can say, I wouldn't have called him that, but, I understand it. That's how you can get around it if you really want to. I don't think you should want to. I don't think you should need to. We should, if every leader in this town used forceful words and then took their forceful words and put them into action when it came to going after criminals, we'd be a much safer community. We'd be a much safer city. Instead, we're sitting over here debating semantics over whether or not the word thug is appropriate to use for people who just shot 25 people. It's beyond ridiculous. 913-408-7957. That's our studio line. That's our text line on KCMO. The good, the bad, and the ugly is coming up next. Ken Coleman at the top of the hour. Let's go to Patrick in Independence. What's up, Patrick? Good morning.
Hey, I don't know if any of these people that say this dog whistling thing has ever tried to use a dog whistle. It doesn't call the dogs. Dog whistles don't work.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it, man. 913-408-7957. That's the text line as well here on KCMO Talk Radio. I see the tongue-in-cheek nature on the text line, which I appreciate. Pete, the problem is not the thug, it's the gun. Yeah, very well done. Ron in Midtown before the break. What's up, Ron? Good morning.
Hey, how's it going, Pete?
All right, go ahead, my man.
Hey, listening to what he said and what you said, I think, specific words matter. Now, I don't have a problem with the word thug so much.
Okay.
But what I do have a problem with is the misconception that he put out there when he said a bunch of thugs. There was less than a handful of people. And to say, for somebody who didn't watch it on TV or anything like that, and they hear what he said, you would have thought there might have been a gang of people running around shooting guns. Now, the one thing that you said that
so wait, hold on. Let me just get this straight. You're okay with the word thug. You're upset.
Oh, yeah.
You're upset with the word. You're upset with the word a bunch of thugs.
I'm not upset, but the perception.
Good God,
given,
Ron.
No, Pete. The perception given when you say a bunch isn't 2 or 3 people. I think it makes a big difference. I really do. Just like you said.
It makes a difference in what? To who? It's
somebody's perception that has no idea, that hasn't been watching the news to see that it's only been a couple of people.
At that point, it was 3 people in custody when we talked to the governor on Thursday. Maybe he should have said a few. Would that have made you feel better?
And neither one of them, because I didn't even hear his speech. I don't listen to him, but I think so I'm not upset, but I think it gives a different perspective. If you were to say the Chiefs beat the San Francisco by a bunch of touchdowns as opposed to just a couple, does that make a difference as far as perception?
I don't think so, Ron. I really don't.
Man,
I just
okay.
It is. Listen, I appreciate you, Ron. Have a great day, my man. I can't get the semantics down of being upset by the word a bunch of thugs. A couple of thugs, a few thugs, a handful of thugs, a carton of thugs. I don't know. What are we doing here? Come on. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll get to that from the weekend next on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and the KCMO Talk Radio app. And as our friend Harris Faulkner said this morning on her Twitter page, wake up, listen to Pete on weekday mornings. Have a great show today, my friend. Thank you very much to Harris Faulkner. That's up on our Twitter page, at Pete Mundo. See it there. I'd love for you to listen back to the podcast from Friday that I did it was on the show, but we podcasted it. The interview with Nick Wright, formerly sports radio in this town and now Fox Sports, where I tried to have a conversation with him and he wanted to just scream about gun control and weapons of war and all the other, things he reads about in the New York Times. And Pastor Darren Edwards, who's actually at the ground level of what's happening in his words, the hood. He described it as that. I'm not describing it as that. And listen to how we just conversed versus how Nick Wright just wanted to yell at me for 35 minutes about guns. And that's not to say that Pastor Edwards wouldn't like to see changes in the gun laws in Missouri. He kind of alluded to it, but he also admitted it's not as clear-cut as some want to turn that into. 913-408-7957 is our text line and our show line on KCMO Talk Radio. Ann Coulter at 9:05. She was on the Bill Maher show over the weekend talking about Kansas City. Alfonso is in Blue Springs. What's up, Alfonso? Good morning.
How's it going? I actually grew up in the inner city, and all my friends are knuckleheads. And the real problem that we have to solve as a community is that it's not my mom who's the issue. It's that my mom works 2 jobs to take care of me, and I'm learning problem-solving skills from knuckleheads with $5,000 in their pocket and who are quick to shoot. The first, second, third graders are hanging out with Uncle Johnny, who has a pocket full of money and never listen to mom. So until we solve that problem, I don't care what law you pass, until you can get a positive role model in kids' lives who are their family, not a guy who really don't care about them, you're not going to solve anything. I think on our block we had 8 kids, and only 2 of us made it out.
Really? And what do you credit your story to?
Actually, I got lucky. My mom, when I was 9 years old, my mom seen us hanging out with the knuckleheads from blocks playing dice, and she packed up with $12 in her pocket and moved to a homeless shelter in Denver. And I got to experience the white culture, and it changed. Luckily, a family who live here now, they took me in and showed me another way how to live life.
So your mother moved you to Denver with $12 in her pocket, and you lived in a homeless shelter?
Yep.
And then
he wasn't going to jail.
And then you came back to Kansas City?
Yep. My grandma got sick later in life. We came back to Kansas City, but out of the 9 kids on our block, only me and my brother are the 2 kids who are not dead or in jail.
Is that right?
Yep.
Wow. And that's impressive. And if you stayed here, you think that you would have ended up like the rest of them?
I'd be dead or in jail, yep, because the older kids who wasn't my mom are actually parenting the younger kids. So you don't learn anything from your parents. You learn that from the older kids in your neighborhood because your mom is too busy because she's a single mom. She's working and providing for you in the household, but there's nobody there to actually influence. So your friends and your older, as we call them, OGs, are influencing your lifestyle and your problem-solving skills. And they're quick to get into fights or whatever, and that's where you learn it from.
How does, if at all, the churches, the communities within the churches, how do they? I know they work hard to try to play a role. They can't get to everybody, but how do they factor into the equation here?
In my opinion, my mom is really religious, and I'm not. Either I can listen to the Pastor Darren. Pastor Darren is nice, but the OGs on the block are going to buy me Jordan tennis shoes so I can go get the girls in 7th, 8th grade. Who am I going to listen to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. I mean, young impressionable males. I understand it.
Yeah. Yep. And they'll throw you a little pocket change to keep you hip and cool in school. So they have more influences than the church because the churches really can't afford to really influence you in that way. So it becomes a money thing for kids who, I want Jordans like everybody else. And my friends got a way for me to get it.
Well, Alfonso, we appreciate that perspective, my man. It's terrible. It's sad. I'm glad you got out. I'm glad you're doing well. But, I hate to hear the realities of that story.
Yep. Appreciate you.
All right, man. 913-408-7957 as we approach 9 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio. I mean, instead, what does the Kansas City media want to scream about today? Mike Parson called them thugs. Is that appropriate?
That's what National Panhandler Radio, KCUR, is doing over the last couple of days. That's why one of their hosts decided that he was going to ask Quentin Lucas about Mike Parson calling these individuals thugs on this show. Because they don't want to have the real conversations. They don't want to hear from Alfonso. It doesn't help them with their white guilt, and it doesn't help them further their narrative around gun control. So they don't have any interest in doing that or going down that road. But like what we're doing, talking to real people, talking to folks at the ground level, from Pastor Edwards to Alfonso to people like that, you're hearing, and I'm not saying that they have all the answers, but they certainly are willing to have the nuanced conversations instead of what you hear on National Panhandler Radio, geared towards people in Wokewood and you know, places of that nature, who just want to feel bad about themselves and put their yard signs up to feel better about themselves.
Kind of paraphrasing Reagan right now, but it's like our liberal friends know so much that just isn't true.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like.
Into, right? You make up a narrative, you project that onto me that you're saying, I think that, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, I hear, and I heard this on Friday on another radio show as I was driving up north to the Missouri GOP state convention. And it was the end of an hour, and this lady calls up, and she's crying on the phone about how, you know, these poor kids, referring to the shooters, by the way, not those who were shot, the shooters, they never had a chance, and we all need to do more. And by the way, yeah, if we can donate our time and our riches, whatever that means for you, to organizations helping at the ground level, I think that's great. I want to do that. We should all do that. But the cry on behalf of the shooters after Wednesday is quite a take. Even the hosts had to be like, oh, yeah, you know, let's not forget they killed people here. They shot little kids. Like, we're not going to shed a tear for them right now. And when they're saying that, and you can guess who I'm talking about, you know something's up.